abandoned on her birthday date, until the prince's little daughter asked, "Can you be my new mom?" Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. Evelyn Carter pressed her gloved hands together in her lap and tried not to stare at the clock on the far wall. The restaurant in Bath hummed with a low murmur of voices and the clink of cutlery. But at her small table by the window, time seemed to move more slowly than anywhere else in England. A candle flickered between the two plates, casting a soft light over the empty chair across from her. He is only a little late, she told herself. Edmund is always delayed by something important. She adjusted the ribbon at her throat and glanced down at the folded place card bearing her name. Written in the careful hand of the maitre d', it looked almost proud of itself, as if it had helped arrange something grand. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "This is the perfect evening, Evelyn. Your birthday, a private dinner, a table reserved in your name. A gentleman does not do all that without a purpose. Smile. Be gracious. You must not show impatience." She tried to smile, though no one was watching her. Outside the window, the street lamps had been lit, throwing soft circles of light on the pavement. Carriages passed now and then, wheels rattling over the stones. He will arrive any moment, she thought. He will apologize for being late. Then he will take my hand and say what everyone expects him to say. Perhaps we shall finally set a date. The waiter approached with a subtle bow. "Will you take something while you wait, miss? A glass of wine, some bread?" "Just water, please," she said, and her voice came out thinner than she intended. "My fiancé will be here shortly." The word felt strange on her tongue in that moment. Fiancé. It had once tasted sweet, full of promise. Tonight it felt like something she needed to defend. The waiter nodded and moved away. Evelyn drew in a slow breath, then another. She could hear laughter from a nearby table, a group of older gentlemen discussing politics, and from another the soft chatter of two ladies admiring someone's bonnet. "It is my birthday," she reminded herself. "I will not sit here and tremble like a frightened child." The glass of water was placed before her. She lifted it, took a small sip, and set it down at once when she saw him. Edmund Hale stepped through the doorway with the careful precision of a man who disliked being noticed, but was always sure that he was. His dark coat was perfectly tailored, his cravat neat, his hair just slightly ruffled from the evening air. He spoke briefly with the maitre d', then turned and saw her. For a heartbeat, she felt everything inside her swell with relief. He is here. Everything will be well. I was foolish to worry. He crossed the room toward her, face composed, movements measured. As he drew closer, the relief began to slip. He did not smile. He did not hurry. He did not look pleased to see her. Evelyn rose as he reached the table. "Edmund," she said, forcing lightness into her tone. "I began to fear the clock would scold you for tardiness." "Miss Carter," he said quietly, bowing over her hand, rather than kissing it as he sometimes did. "Forgive my delay, Miss Carter." Not Evelyn, not tonight. Something cold settled at the edge of her thoughts. "You are forgiven," she answered, taking her seat again. "I hope nothing serious kept you." "Nothing beyond the usual inconveniences of the day." He sat opposite her, drawing his napkin onto his lap, with a care that looked almost like reluctance. "I trust you have not been waiting long." "Only a little. I ordered nothing without you. I thought—" She stopped herself. It was her birthday. She would not nag him about minutes. The waiter appeared, all polite efficiency. "Good evening, sir. Will you require a menu, or shall we proceed with what was arranged?" Evelyn looked at Edmund, expectant. Arranged. Her heart fluttered. "Yes," Edmund said after the smallest pause. "We shall proceed as planned." The waiter nodded. "Very good, sir." He glanced at Evelyn with a hint of a smile. "And the cake, miss, as requested? Shall it be brought after the main course?" Colour rose in Evelyn's cheeks. "Yes. After, please." As the waiter moved away, she let out a breath. "I had not meant for him to speak of it," she said softly. "The cake, I mean. It was only a little foolishness. One does not turn 24 every day." Edmund's gaze rested on her face, then shifted to the candle, then back. "Indeed," he said. There was nothing warm in the word. Silence fell between them, thin and fragile. "How has your mother been?" she asked quickly. "You mentioned she had taken a chill." "She has improved. I am glad." "And your work? You once said this season might bring advancement." "It may yet. though circumstances have changed somewhat." "Changed?" Evelyn asked. "In what way?" His jaw tightened. "In a way that has required much thought." She folded her hands together beneath the table so he would not see her fingers tighten. "Edmund," she said, and the softness slipped from her voice. "You are not yourself." "Has something happened?" He looked at her fully then, and for the first time that evening she saw something truly alive in his eyes. But it was not the tenderness she had hoped for. It was resolve. "Yes," he said, "something has happened, or rather, something must happen. And it is best we speak of it at once." The sound of laughter rose from another table. Too loud, too sharp. The candle between them sputtered slightly. Evelyn swallowed. "Very well. Speak then." He placed his hands on the table, fingers spread as if bracing himself. "Miss Carter," he began, and she flinched again at the formality. "When we first formed our understanding, it was under certain assumptions, my position, my prospects, the expectations of my family. Those matters have undergone a serious reconsideration." She tried to smile. "If your prospects have improved, surely that is cause for celebration." "They have not improved," he said. "They have sharpened. There is a difference." "I do not understand." "No," he said. "I suppose you do not." He paused as the first course arrived, 2 elegant plates set before them, steam curling faintly. The waiter poured wine, bowed, and retreated. Evelyn could not imagine lifting a fork. Edmund exhaled slowly. "I will not speak in circles," he said. "My family has made it clear that certain alliances are more advantageous than others. They believe I must attach myself in a way that brings influence, support, perhaps an estate. They have opportunities in view." Her heart beat in her throat. "And I," he went on, "am not in a position to ignore them." Evelyn stared at him. "Opportunities," she repeated. "You mean another lady?" His expression did not change. "You must see," he said, "that I have responsibilities." "You are a sensible woman, Evelyn." The use of her name felt like a mercy and a blow at once. "My father is not without means," she said, the words tumbling out. "We may not be wealthy, but we are not destitute. We have always understood that you are ambitious. I have never complained." "This is beyond complaint," he said, more sharply than before. "The world is changing. Men must attach themselves wisely or not at all." "And I am unwise," she whispered. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "You are insufficient," he said quietly, "in the eyes of those whose opinions matter. Your family holds no title. Your dowry is modest, and now—" He hesitated. "And now what?" she pressed, though she already dreaded the answer. "Now," he said, "there is talk." She felt the blood drain from her face. "Talk of what?" "I have done nothing." "Talk of your temperament," he said, looking away, "that you are too quick to feel, too easily hurt, too romantic, perhaps. A man in my position cannot afford a wife who invites sympathy rather than respect." The words fell like stones between them. "I see," she said, though she hardly could. "And so you have come this evening, on my birthday, to tell me that I am not sufficiently useful to you." His lips thinned. "Do not make it sound cruel. I am being honest." "Oh," she said, her voice shaking. "Forgive me. Honesty is a kindness, I suppose." He shifted in his chair. "I have delayed this conversation longer than I should. I did not wish to embarrass you. And yet here we are," she said. "In a public dining room with half of Bath's respectable society 2 tables away." He glanced around as if noticing the other diners for the first time. "It cannot be helped now," he said. "I have given my word to my family. The engagement must end. It is better to do so before we take any further steps." She stared at him. In her mind, she saw her mother sewing tiny stitches into a new gown, her father counting the cost of the dinner she was not meant to know about, the quiet glow of hope that had settled over their home these past months. "You wished to end our engagement," she said slowly, "and you chose to do it here tonight." He looked uncomfortable for the first time. "It seemed appropriate," he said. "We were all ready to dine together. I thought it better to speak plainly than to allow you to expect something that would not occur." Something inside her cracked, but she kept her voice low. "You thought," she said, "that I would arrive expecting a proposal and a date, And you wish to prevent me from making that mistake. How very considerate. Do not be sarcastic, he said sharply. It does not become you. She laughed then, a small sound she could not quite control. Nothing becomes me today, it seems. Not my birth, not my feelings, not my name. Are there any other deficiencies you wish to enumerate before the cake appears? He frowned. Really, Evelyn, there is no need for dramatics. Dramatics, she repeated. My engagement is broken. I am being dismissed in a public restaurant, and you would prefer I do it quietly, like a letter returned by post. You are making a scene, he muttered. She lowered her voice at once. Whatever else she was, she would not be that. No, she said. How you have made the scene. I am simply present in it. For a moment their eyes locked. She searched his face for some trace of the man who had once spoken of walking with her by the sea, of finding a small cottage some day. She found only a stranger who disliked discomfort. He stood. I will speak to the maitre d', he said. The bill will be settled. You may remain as long as you wish. It would not look well if we left together now. She gripped the edge of the table. Edmund, she said, and the word tore at her throat. Is there truly nothing more? No regret? No apology for the manner of it? He gave a small, stiff bow. I regret that circumstances have changed, he said. And I wish you... Well, then he turned and walked away. She watched him cross the room. A few heads turned. One gentleman lifted an eyebrow. A lady whispered behind her fan. Edmund spoke to the maitre d', nodded once and left through the same door by which he had entered, his back straight, his stride unhurried. Evelyn sat alone at the table. The candle burned steadily, casting light over 2 untouched plates. The smell of the food turned her stomach. She reached for her glass of wine with a hand that shook and brought it to her lips. The liquid burned its way down her throat, though it was not nearly strong enough to numb anything. Do not cry, she thought. Not here. Not where they can see. She folded her napkin slowly, as if the careful movement might hold her together. The words he had spoken ran through her mind in a cruel loop. Insufficient. Dramatic. A wife who invites sympathy rather than respect. She felt the sting in her eyes before she could stop it. Tears blurred the candlelight. She blinked hard, but they spilled over anyway, hot and humiliating, sliding down her cheeks. Well then, she thought bitterly, let them see. Let them see what it looks like when a man decides that a woman's heart is inconvenient. Miss? The waiter's voice was hesitant. Shall I? He glanced at the plates. Bring the cake? The cake. For a moment she had forgotten it. Earlier that afternoon she had walked into the bakery and ordered it herself, cheeks warm, telling the man behind the counter that it was to be a small surprise for her fiancé. A simple cake, nothing lavish, with one word on it. Evelyn. She had imagined Edmund laughing when he saw it, teasing her for vanity, perhaps feeding her a small bite to tease her. How absurd that image seemed now. Yes, she heard herself say. Bring the cake. The waiter looked uncertain, but he bowed and hurried away. Evelyn wiped her cheeks as discreetly as she could, though she knew there was no hiding the red rim of her eyes. A couple at a nearby table pretended not to look at her, but their glances kept drifting in her direction. Another woman nudged her companion, murmuring something behind a gloved hand. Evelyn fixed her gaze on the candle and tried to breathe. The cake arrived on a small tray, carried by the same waiter. It was simple and round, covered in smooth white icing, with a single candle at the center. In delicate letters, the name Evelyn curved across the top. The waiter set it down in front of her. Many happy returns, miss, he said quietly, and there was genuine kindness in his eyes. She swallowed. Thank you. He stepped back. Evelyn stared at the cake. It stared back, silent and useless. A celebration for one. A little monument to her own foolish hopes. She lifted a hand to her face, catching another tear before it could fall. The room around her seemed to fade into a dull blur. She did not notice the group of gentlemen rising. She did not notice the tall man in dark clothing step into the restaurant with a small child at his side. Papa! A small voice piped up from somewhere near the entrance. So many lights! Hush, Amelia, came the gentle reply. We must behave ourselves. Evelyn shut her eyes. If she could make herself small enough, perhaps she might disappear entirely. Perhaps she might slip beneath the table and become part of the floorboards. "Miss?" She opened her eyes at the sound of a very small voice, much closer than before. A little girl stood at the edge of the table, one hand resting on the chair beside Evelyn, the other clutching a slightly worn doll. She had fair hair in loose curls and wide, curious eyes. Her cheeks were pink from the evening air. She could not have been more than 3. Behind her, at a distance that suddenly felt too great, stood a woman dressed as a nursemaid, face pale with alarm. "Amelia," the nursemaid hissed under her breath. "Come back at once. You must not disturb the lady." But Amelia, having escaped, showed no sign of returning. She gazed up at Evelyn with solemn interest, then at the cake. "Why are you sad?" the child asked, as if it were the most natural question in the world. Evelyn blinked. Her voice refused to sound. She cleared her throat. "I am not—" She dabbed at her face again. "I am quite all right." "You are crying," the little girl said, unconvinced. "Your eyes are wet. Children notice everything," Evelyn thought. "It is nothing," she managed. "Sometimes one cries a little even when nothing is wrong," the child frowned. "That is silly." "Yes," Evelyn said with a weak laugh. "It is." Amelia moved closer, pulling herself up onto the empty chair that had been Edmund's. The nursemaid took a step forward, then stopped, torn between duty to the child and fear of whoever might be watching. "You have a cake," Amelia observed, "with fire." "It is a candle," Evelyn said, "for my birthday." "My birthday had 3 candles," Amelia announced. She held up 3 fingers proudly. "I blew them and made a wish. Did you make a wish?" "Not yet," Evelyn said. "I do not know what to wish for." The little girl tilted her head, considering her with remarkable seriousness. "You wished for a husband," she said suddenly. "But he went away." Evelyn's breath caught. She had not realized that anyone had seen. Of course they had. A child, sitting somewhere, watching everything. "I do not know what I wished for," Evelyn said softly. "Perhaps I wished for the wrong thing." Amelia looked at her for a long moment, then at the cake, then back. "Miss," she said. "Yes? Would you like a new wish?" Evelyn felt something in her chest twist. "Yes," she whispered. "I think I would." Amelia nodded, as if that settled something. "You may have mine," she declared. "My next wish. I do not need it. I already know what I want." The words were so simple, so direct, that Evelyn could not help smiling, though her eyes were still wet. "And what do you want, Miss Amelia?" The child's lips curved into a small, shy smile. "A mama," she said. Evelyn's smile faltered. "Oh," she said. "I am sorry, my dear. I cannot help with that." "Yes, you can," Amelia insisted. "You are kind, and you are sad. I am sad sometimes too. Nurse says mamas help when you are sad." Evelyn felt the room sway slightly. "You should speak to your father about such things," she said, her voice unsteady. "Not to strangers." "You are not a stranger," Amelia said at once. "You are—" She looked at the cake again, sounding out the letters with surprising care. "Evelyn." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I saw you," Amelia went on. "Your husband went away and you cried. And I thought, that is like me. My mama went away too." The words were said with a child's simplicity, but the meaning landed like a weight. "I am sorry," Evelyn murmured. "Truly." Amelia nodded as if she had heard the phrase many times. "It is very dull without a mama," she added. "Nurse is kind, papa is kind, but they are not mamas. Papas do not know where ribbons go." A small, startled laugh escaped Evelyn. It turned into a sob halfway through. "I suppose they do not," she said. Amelia leaned forward, small hands resting on the table. "You may be mine," she announced. "It will fix it." "Amelia!" The nursemaid finally found her voice and stepped forward, wringing her hands. "My lady, you must not trouble the gentlewoman. Please forgive her, miss. She is too free with her tongue." The words barely reached Evelyn. Her attention was fixed on the child. "You wish me to be your mother?" she asked, unable to keep the wonder out of her voice. "Yes," Amelia said matter-of-factly. "You are pretty, and you need a new wish, and I need a new mama. It is very simple." Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. A shadow fell across the table. "Amelia." The voice was low and calm, with the kind of quiet authority that never needed to be raised. The nursemaid stepped back at once and curtsied. Amelia, however, did not move. Evelyn looked up. The man standing beside the table was tall, dressed in a dark coat that suited the sober lines of his face. His hair was a shade darker than Amelia's, his eyes steady and serious. There was something in his bearing, in the way the room's attention seemed to bend toward him, that spoke of rank even before the maitre d' appeared at his side, bowing deeply. "Your Highness," the maitre d' murmured. "Your Highness." Evelyn's breath caught. A prince. The prince. Henry of Westford, if the newspapers were to be believed, visiting Bath for his health and quiet. "Amelia," he said again, looking at his daughter, not the room. "What have we spoken about running away from nurse?" Amelia twisted in her chair but did not climb down. "I was not running away," she said. "I was helping." "Helping whom?" he asked gently. "Her," Amelia said, pointing straight at Evelyn. "She is crying. And her husband went away, so I asked if she would be my new mamma." The murmurs around them swelled. Evelyn felt the blood rush to her face. "Your what?" Henry repeated, startled. "My new mamma," Amelia said slowly, as if he might not have heard. "You said you did not know where to find one. I found one. She is called Evelyn. She has a cake, but no husband. We can share." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Henry exhaled, the faintest hint of weary amusement in his eyes. "I see," he said quietly. He looked at Evelyn at last. "Miss Evelyn, is it?" She could barely manage a nod. "Carter," she said faintly. "Evelyn Carter, sir. Forgive my daughter," he said. "She has a habit of deciding the world is easily mended." "It is quite all right," Evelyn said, though her heart was pounding. "She has done nothing wrong." Amelia turned to her father, impatient. "She is sad," she insisted, "and I like her. Look, she has a name on her cake. It is a sign." "Amelia," Henry said. "That is not how signs work." The child folded her arms. "How do they work, then?" He sighed. "We shall discuss it later." He turned back to Evelyn, his expression apologetic. "I am sorry, Miss Carter," he said. "This must be awkward. I hope you will accept my apology for the intrusion." "No apology is necessary," she replied quickly. "Truly, your daughter has been very kind." Kind. The word felt strange in this room tonight. Yet that was exactly what Amelia had been. Henry studied her face for a moment, as if he could see the traces of what had happened. Perhaps he had seen Edmund leave. Perhaps he had heard whispers. "If there is any way we may make amends," he said, "you have only to say." "There is no need," she said. "The fault is not yours." Amelia tugged at his sleeve. "Papa," she whispered, but not quietly enough. "Ask her. Ask if she will be my mamma." "Amelia," he murmured, "that is not a question one asks a stranger at dinner." "Why not?" she demanded. "Because—" He searched for an answer, then seemed to abandon it. "Because it is complicated." "She is clever," Amelia said, as if that solved everything. "She will understand." Evelyn put a hand over her mouth to stifle another helpless laugh. "I understand that your daughter misses her mother," she said softly. Henry's gaze shifted, and in that moment she saw it, the shadow behind his composure, the quiet pain that never fully left his eyes. "She does," he said. "As do I." The words hung between them, simple and stark. "I am sorry," Evelyn said again. He inclined his head. "Come, Amelia," he said gently. "We must let Miss Carter enjoy her birthday in peace." Amelia's face fell. "But I do not want her to be alone," she said. "You said it was bad to be alone on a birthday." Henry glanced at the candle, the untouched plates, the little cake with its single word. "I did say that," he admitted. Evelyn felt her spine stiffen. "I am quite used to my own company," she said. "I shall manage very well." The lie tasted bitter, but she forced it out. Amelia looked at her with grave concern. "I will come back," she whispered, "if nurse lets me." "Amelia," the nursemaid said in despair. Henry's mouth tightened, then softened. "You may wave from your table," he said. "From a distance, that will be sufficient." Amelia sighed, slid down from the chair and reached for her father's hand. She hesitated, looking at Evelyn. "Do not blow the candle yet," she instructed. "Wait until I wave, then make a wish. The new one, not the old one." Evelyn swallowed hard. "I will try," she said. Amelia seemed satisfied with that. She took her father's hand. Henry inclined his head once more. "Good evening, Miss Carter," he said. "And happy birthday." "Thank you," she said, her voice little more than a breath. They turned away. The room seemed to exhale with them. The maitre d' shadowed their steps, his manner careful, respectful. They moved to a table not far away, one better suited to a man of rank and his small household. Evelyn stared at the cake again. Her tears had dried, at least for the moment. The child's words rang in her ears. "You may be mine. It will fix it." "Miss?" She looked up. The maitre d' stood beside her now, hands folded neatly. "Yes?" she asked. He gave a small, courteous smile. "His Highness has requested," he said softly, "that your bill this evening, including the cake, be placed upon his account." Evelyn stared at him. I do not understand," she said. "It is his wish," the maitre d' replied, "as an apology for the disturbance, I believe." Her gaze shifted past the maitre d' across the room. At his table, the prince sat with his daughter, listening patiently as Amelia spoke, one hand resting lightly on the back of her chair. As if sensing her stare, he looked up. Their eyes met, and she saw that he was watching her with an expression she could not quite name, something intent and measuring, as though he were deciding something important. Evelyn slept little that night. When she did close her eyes, she saw the restaurant again, the candle, the empty chair, the untouched cake, Edmund's stiff bow, Amelia's earnest little face, and across the room the prince's steady gaze, lingering for a moment longer than politeness demanded. By morning the scene was no longer hers alone. Her mother walked into the breakfast room with a newspaper in her hand and a pinched look around her mouth. "Well, Mrs. Carter said, before even greeting her, "you have managed to appear in print." Evelyn looked up from her untouched toast. "In print?" she repeated. "Surely not. Not by name," her mother admitted, taking her seat. "But who else could it be?" A certain gentleman, lately engaged, was observed departing a respectable establishment in Bath last evening, leaving a young lady to face her birthday cake alone. "Do you suppose that is some other silly creature with a cake and a broken engagement?" Her father lowered his cup carefully. "Let me see that," Mr. Carter said. Mrs. Carter handed him the paper, then turned to her daughter. "He did it publicly, Evelyn," she went on. "Publicly. You must have known there would be talk." "I did not arrange the scene," Evelyn said, more sharply than she intended. "I merely sat where I was told and listened." Mr. Carter scanned the paragraph, his mouth tightening. "They have spared names, at least," he said. "For now." Mrs. Carter sighed. "Names travel faster by tongue than by ink." Evelyn folded her hands in her lap. "People will forget," her father said, in the hopeful tone of a man who knows very well they will not. "No, they will not," Mrs. Carter replied. "They will take it as a tale to season tea with. Did you hear, Mrs. So-and-so, about poor Miss Carter, dismissed at the table? You will be the girl with the cake for the next 10 years. Evelyn stared at the tablecloth. "May I be allowed to feel wretched before we begin future calculations?" she asked quietly. Mrs. Carter softened a little. "You may be allowed to feel," she said, "but we cannot ignore what must be done. We cannot hide you in your room forever. The worst thing would be for people to think you are ashamed." "I am ashamed," Evelyn said. "You have no cause." Mr. Carter shook out the paper and set it aside. "The shame is Edmund's, not yours." "That is not how society works, my dear," Mrs. Carter replied. "When something goes wrong between a man and a woman, it is very rarely his fault in the eyes of that society." "Then society is a fool," Mr. Carter muttered. "Fool or not, it is what we must live in." Mrs. Carter looked at her daughter again. "You must be seen, soon, calm, proper, unbroken." "I am broken," Evelyn said. "Then mend quickly," her mother said briskly, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "We have no other choice." Mr. Carter cleared his throat. "There is talk," he said carefully, "that the Prince of Westford is in Bath. That may distract people." Evelyn's spoon clattered against her saucer. "I am not sure a prince can mend the damage Edmund has done," she said. "I do not suggest he mend it," her father said. "Merely that gossip has a way of chasing novelty. A royal visitor will provide plenty." Mrs. Carter frowned. "I heard he was at the same restaurant," she said slowly. "Is that true?" Evelyn swallowed. "Yes," she said. "He was there, with his daughter. Her mother's eyes sharpened. "Did he see?" she asked. "I expect so," Evelyn replied. Everyone saw. Mrs. Carter pressed her lips together, then forced a lighter tone. "Well," she said, "there is no use sitting here fretting all day. Mrs. Harrow is hosting a small gathering at the pump room this afternoon. We are invited. We shall go." "I do not wish to go," Evelyn said at once. "I did not ask what you wished," her mother said, not unkindly. "I know what you would wish, and it is impossible. I am telling you what must be done." Mr. Carter gave Evelyn a look of sympathy. "It may be easier to bear than you think," he said. She doubted that very much. By afternoon, Evelyn was dressed and out, whether she wished it or not. The pump room was alive with movement, as always. Ladies in bright gowns, gentlemen in dark coats, the music of a small ensemble filling the air. The scent of tea and pastries drifted through the hall. As soon as Evelyn stepped inside, she felt the weight of eyes. "Do not look down," her mother murmured. "Do not rush. Walk as you always do. Smile if you can manage it." Evelyn lifted her chin and tried. A pair of ladies turned to whisper as she passed. A gentleman she vaguely recognized pretended not to see her. A younger girl stared openly until her companion tugged at her sleeve. They joined a small cluster near the windows. Mrs. Harrow greeted them with flustered warmth. "My dear Mrs. Carter, Miss Carter," she said. "How good of you to come." "It is kind of you to have us," Mrs. Carter replied smoothly. Mrs. Harrow patted Evelyn's hand with a sympathy that stung. "We have all heard," she murmured. "People are beasts. Do not listen to any of them." "I intend not to," Evelyn said, though she could not help hearing. Behind her, someone said, "There, that is her." Another voice replied, "Poor thing, and on her birthday." A third added, "I heard he left her with the bill." "That is untrue," Evelyn muttered under her breath. "What was that, dear?" her mother asked. "Nothing," Evelyn said. "Only, I should like some air." Before her mother could protest, Mrs. Harrow clapped her hands gently. "Have you heard?" she said, raising her voice slightly. "His Highness is to take the waters this afternoon, here in the pump room." A wave of interest rippled through the crowd. Heads turned, fans fluttered. "Here," someone gasped. "Today?" "So I am told," Mrs. Harrow replied. "With his little daughter. The poor child lost her mother, you know. So very sad." Evelyn's heart gave a strange little leap. Amelia. She had not allowed herself to think of the child all morning. Now the memory of that earnest face rose again. "Perhaps we should leave," she said quickly. "Before—" "Nonsense," Mrs. Carter said. "We shall remain precisely where we are. To leave now would be to admit defeat. Besides, it is not every day one sees a prince." Evelyn sighed. The door at the far end opened. A hush fell over the room that was not complete silence, but a different kind of sound, strained, expectant. The Prince of Westford entered, not with fanfare, but with a quiet confidence that drew attention like a magnet. He wore a dark coat, simple but impossibly well cut. Beside him, holding his hand and looking about with great interest, was Amelia. "There she is," someone whispered. "The little princess." "She is not a princess," another voice murmured. "She is only his daughter. The title is another matter. Still, look how sweet she is." Amelia did not seem aware of the scrutiny. She tugged at her father's hand, pointing at the musicians. "Papa, they are playing," she said. "May we dance?" "Later," he replied. "For now we must do what we came to do, drink the horrid water," she sighed. "You must not call it horrid," he said mildly. "You called it horrid," she answered. "That was unwise of me," he said. "Do not repeat it." Evelyn found herself smiling. "Miss Carter," a familiar voice said behind her. She turned. It was Mr. Blakely, an older gentleman who had known her father for years. "I had not expected to see you out so soon," he said kindly. "Nor had I," she replied. He lowered his voice. "Pay no attention to whispers. People love misfortune so long as it is not their own." "Then we must give them something else to love," Mrs. Carter said. "Such as a prince." Mr. Blakely chuckled. As if on cue, the prince moved slowly through the room, acknowledging bows and curtsies with a nod. Amelia's gaze roamed restlessly. Her eyes found Evelyn. They brightened at once. "Papa!" she exclaimed, tugging on his hand. "Papa, that is her! The birthday lady!" The nearby group fell utterly silent. "Amelia," Henry murmured. Not so loud. She is there, Amelia insisted, pointing directly at Evelyn. The one with the cake. There is no cake here, Henry said, exasperated. There was, Amelia said. Yesterday she cried, remember? Several heads turned toward Evelyn. Heat rushed to her face. Children, someone muttered. The prince's gaze shifted, following Amelia's hand. His eyes met Evelyn's again, this time in full daylight. For a moment neither looked away. Then he inclined his head politely. Miss Carter, he said, loud enough for those near to hear. A murmur rustled through the group like wind through leaves. You know him, Mrs. Carter whispered sharply. We met last night very briefly, Evelyn replied under her breath. Then to Henry she said, Your Highness? She curtsied, because there was nothing else to do. I must apologize again for my daughter's behavior, he said. She has not yet learned that not every thought must be spoken. It was not her behavior that troubled me last night, Evelyn said, surprising herself with the boldness. There was a flicker in his eyes. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes, he said softly. I can imagine. Amelia stepped forward, wriggling free of the nursemaid. Are you happier today? She asked, looking up at Evelyn. You are not crying now. Amelia, Henry said, you must not. It is quite all right, Evelyn said quickly. I am somewhat better, thank you. Amelia looked relieved. I told Papa about your cake, she said. He said it was not our affair, but I told him it was very bad manners to leave a lady alone on her birthday. Several ladies gasped. A gentleman coughed to hide a laugh. Did you? Evelyn said weakly. She did, Henry admitted. I did not disagree with her assessment, only with her choice of phrases. We saw the gentleman leave, Amelia continued, ignoring them both. He did not look very nice. I am glad he is gone. Now you can choose a better one. Amelia, the nursemaid whispered, horrified. I shall take her away, Henry said, pinching the bridge of his nose for a second, before she further revises the laws of propriety. Before he could, another presence approached. Your Highness, a smooth voice intervened, how delightful to find you in such interesting company. Evelyn turned. A tall woman in deep blue silk stood before them, her posture perfectly straight, her expression composed. She was handsome rather than pretty, with sharp eyes that seemed to weigh everything she saw. She wore her hair in a severe, elegant style that did not soften her features. Lady Beatrice, Henry said. Cousin, she replied, offering a small curtsy. Bath has improved since your arrival. I doubt I have had much effect, he said dryly. You underestimate your presence, she replied. Her gaze slid to Amelia. And hers. Amelia gave a little bounce. Hello, she said. We are talking about cakes. So I heard, Lady Beatrice said. And gentlemen of uncertain worth. Her eyes finally settled on Evelyn. And whom do we have here? She asked. Evelyn felt as if she were being inspected. Miss Evelyn Carter, Henry said. We had the misfortune to be in the same establishment last evening. My daughter took an interest. Indeed, Lady Beatrice said. One hears things. It seems all of Bath took an interest. A few listeners shifted uncomfortably. Evelyn lifted her chin. People enjoy talking, she said. I cannot prevent them. Few can, Lady Beatrice said. Yet some provide better material than others. Lady Beatrice, Henry said in a warning tone. She smiled faintly. I am merely observing, cousin, she said, and attempting to protect you from the consequences of your daughter's enthusiasm. Amelia's enthusiasm harms no one, Henry said. Lady Beatrice's brows rose. Does it not? She asked. Forgive me, but when the Prince of Westford's only child begins recommending brides in public, tongues are bound to wag. Evelyn's cheeks burned. I have recommended only one, Amelia said proudly. She pointed at Evelyn again. Her, Evelyn, she will do. A stifled laugh escaped someone behind them. Lady Beatrice did not laugh. Children attach themselves quickly, she said calmly. Unfortunately, the world is not governed by their wishes. She is a child, Henry said. People will understand that. They will understand what they choose to wish for, Lady Beatrice replied. Some will say you encourage her. Others will say the lady does. Evelyn's heart beat faster. I have encouraged nothing, she said. I've only tried to be polite to a very dear little girl. Of course you have, Lady Beatrice said, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Who would be so cruel as to reject a child's affection outright? Her tone suggested that cruelty might be preferable to impropriety. "Lady Beatrice," Henry said, "Miss Carter is not to be spoken of as if she were—" "A social danger?" Lady Beatrice supplied. "That would be unkind. I prefer to think of her as a complication, one which might be harmless if handled carefully." "Handled," Evelyn repeated, her voice low. Lady Beatrice turned to her fully. "My dear, please do not mistake me," she said, using an endearment that felt anything but. "It is unfortunate that your private affairs were made public. No doubt you are entirely blameless. Nevertheless, the fact remains that yours is not a name that sits easily beside that of Westford. For your sake and his, caution is required." "For my sake," Evelyn said. "You are concerned for me." "I am concerned for order," Lady Beatrice said. "When order is disturbed, good people suffer. I include you among them." The words might have been comforting in another mouth. Here they were a warning. "Papa," Amelia said impatiently, "tell her Lady Evelyn is not dangerous. She is nice." "Lady Evelyn?" Lady Beatrice repeated sharply. "She calls me Miss Carter," Evelyn said quickly. "Children misplace titles." "Children," Lady Beatrice said, "often speak truths without realizing it." There was a pause. "Lady Beatrice," Mr. Carter said suddenly, stepping forward. His voice shook slightly, but he did not retreat. "I am Mr. Carter, Evelyn's father. We are very honored to meet you. I must assure you, however, that my daughter has no intention of disturbing anyone's order. She has suffered enough from it." Lady Beatrice regarded him. "I do not question your daughter's virtue," she said, "only the wisdom of exposing her to a world that will never accept her as one of its own." "Perhaps that world is not worth the effort," Mr. Carter said. "Unfortunately," she replied, "it is the world in which His Highness must live." Henry gave his cousin a long look. "Beatrice," he said quietly, "you are treading very near impertinence." "Am I?" she said. "Or am I saying what others will not?" "You are watched. Everything you do is noted, weighed, and repeated. You cannot afford careless attachments, not for yourself, not for your child." "Miss Carter is not an attachment," Henry said, before he could stop himself. The admission hung in the air. "Not yet," Lady Beatrice said, her gaze flicking between his face and Evelyn's. "But your daughter is trying very hard to make her one." Amelia frowned. "I am not making her," she said. "I am asking." "Politely, Amelia," Henry sighed. "This is not a matter for you to decide." "Why not?" she demanded. "You said I could choose a puppy when we go to the country." "This is not a puppy," he said helplessly. "Certainly not," Lady Beatrice murmured. Evelyn felt something inside her harden. "Your ladyship," she said, addressing Beatrice directly. "Whatever your concerns, I assure you I have no ambition toward His Highness. I have no wish to climb into a world where I would only be resented." "Ambition takes many forms," Lady Beatrice replied. "Sometimes it does not even recognize itself in the mirror." "Enough," Henry said, his voice carrying further than before. A few people flinched. The hum of conversation in the room dimmed again. He looked at Lady Beatrice, then at Evelyn, then down at Amelia, who was watching him with wide eyes. "This is not the place for such a discussion," he said. "Nor is Miss Carter the proper target for your caution." Lady Beatrice's jaw tightened. "If you will not hear caution from me," she said softly, "you will hear it from others, and they will not speak so gently." "I am not sure how much gentler you could be," Evelyn murmured. To her surprise, Lady Beatrice's eyes softened for a fleeting second. "I mean you no personal unkindness, Miss Carter," she said quietly, "but your situation is precarious. This notice will not help you." "I am already a subject of amusement," Evelyn said. "Being scolded by nobility at least adds variety." A startled smile flickered around Henry's mouth. "Miss Carter," he said, "you bear this with more wit than many would." "I discovered last night I possess more dramatics than is desirable," she replied. "I must put them to some use." "Who said that?" Lady Beatrice asked sharply. "An expert in suitability," Evelyn said. "I believe we have had enough experts for 1 week." Amelia tugged at Henry's hand again. "Papa," she whispered loudly enough for all to hear. "I do not like her talking to Lady Evelyn that way." "She is not Lady Evelyn," Lady Beatrice said through her teeth. "She is mine. Amelia said stubbornly. I chose her. The room held its breath. Lady Beatrice turned to Henry. Well, cousin, she asked, her voice light but edged. Your daughter has chosen. The room is watching. Shall we allow this attachment to continue? For a few seconds no one spoke. The quiet spread out from their small circle like ripples in a pond. Cups were set down more gently. Fans paused mid-wave. Even the musicians seemed to falter on a note. Henry's gaze stayed on Lady Beatrice. I was not aware, he said slowly, that my daughter's affections required your permission. Lady Beatrice smiled with only the edges of her mouth. Your daughter's affections, she replied, are charming. Your position, however, is not a matter of charm. It is a matter of state. Amelia tugged at his hand again. Papa, she whispered. Tell them you like her too. Henry looked down at her, then at Evelyn. Evelyn's heart thudded. She lifted her chin, though she could feel her hands shaking. Your Highness, she said quietly, you owe me no explanation. If my presence causes difficulty, I shall withdraw. Your cousin need not trouble herself further. Henry shook his head at once. You have done nothing wrong, Miss Carter, he said. You have borne circumstances far worse than this, with more dignity than most women in this room would manage. It was the closest he could come in that moment to saying, I will not let them blame you. Lady Beatrice watched him closely. Dignity is admirable, she said, but it does not silence gossip. On the contrary, it often inspires it. Then let them gossip, Henry said, tired of the word. They will in any case. And when they gossip not merely about a broken engagement, she replied, but about a prince consorting with an unsuitable lady? When they begin to speculate that you mean to set aside every expectation of rank, will you say the same? Henry exhaled slowly. There is no consorting, he said. There is a child who has taken a liking to a kind stranger. That is all. Amelia frowned. She is not a stranger, she said. She is my almost mamma. Amelia, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose again. The people nearest them tried not to laugh. Lady Beatrice did not laugh at all. Your Highness, she said in a lower voice, I understand grief. I understand that losing Margaret left you unmoored. But you must not let that emptiness be filled by chance and sentiment. The court will not forgive it, nor will Parliament. You are not a minor royal to marry whomever you please in some quiet chapel. You are next in line to the throne. I am aware of my position, he said sharply. Then behave as though you are, she replied. Mr. Carter stepped forward again. Forgive me, he said, but I cannot stand here while my daughter is spoken of as if she were some hazard to a kingdom. She is nothing of the sort. Lady Beatrice's eyes softened faintly. Mr. Carter, she said, I do not say she intends harm, only that she will be harmed if this continues. The higher one climbs, the further one may fall. I have already fallen, Evelyn said quietly. There is not much further to go. Henry looked at her, his expression altering. That is not true, he said. Lady Beatrice saw the look and sighed. Cousin, she said, I beg you, send Amelia back to the house. Allow Miss Carter to go home. Then later, when this noise has faded a little, you may decide what is wise, but do not fuel the flames now. Flames, Amelia repeated, puzzled. Where? I see no fire. In people's mouths, Lady Beatrice murmured. Henry was silent a moment. He seemed to be weighing something that could not be seen. At last he nodded. Very well, he said. Amelia, you will return home with nurse. Amelia's face crumpled. No, she said. We just came. We have been here long enough, he said. You have greeted the room. You have seen the musicians. You have commented on the water. That will suffice. I have not said goodbye to Lady Evelyn, she protested. You may do so now, Henry said, with patience that sounded strained. Amelia turned to Evelyn. Will you come to my house? She whispered. Nurse says we have a garden. We could eat cake there too. Evelyn's throat tightened. I do not think that would be proper, my dear, she said, but I shall think of you. Amelia's lower lip trembled. Will you forget me? She asked. Never, Evelyn said, and surprised herself by meaning it with an intensity that startled her. Amelia studied her face, then nodded as if satisfied. Then I will not forget you either, she said, even if they are cross. They? Evelyn asked. She pointed at Lady Beatrice and a cluster of ladies in the background who were pretending not to listen. The people who wear too many jewels, Amelia said. They are always cross. Someone choked on a laugh. Even Henry's mouth twitched. Come, Amelia, he said, before you insult someone who might remember it. I insulted no one, she said indignantly. I said what is true. That, Lady Beatrice murmured, is the trouble. Henry offered Evelyn a brief, sober bow. Miss Carter, he said, I hope we may meet again under less public circumstances. I hope, she replied, that if we do, your cousin will have gentler spectacles. A murmur of amusement ran around them. Lady Beatrice gave a tight, unwilling smile. Perhaps, she said, if Miss Carter's name is no longer a subject of every drawing-room in Bath, my spectacles will not be needed at all. With that, the little group began to break apart. Nurse took Amelia's hand. Amelia twisted to wave at Evelyn again and again as she was led away. Henry was drawn into a circle of gentlemen, all eager to speak. Lady Beatrice drifted off with a purposeful air, like a general about to reassemble her forces. Evelyn stood very still. Her mother touched her arm. You did well, Mrs. Carter whispered. You did not cry, you did not beg. You even made a jest. That is worth something. It feels worth very little, Evelyn said. Mr. Carter put his hand over hers for a moment. Come, he said quietly. You have been brave enough for one afternoon. They did not stay much longer. Every step toward the door felt like a performance. Evelyn could feel eyes on her back, until the moment the air outside hit her face. In the days that followed, Bath buzzed. It buzzed about the broken engagement, of course. It buzzed about Edmund's supposed reasons. It buzzed about Evelyn's composure, or lack of it, depending on who told the story. But now it also buzzed about the pump room scene. The prince, the cousin, the child, the almost mamma. Some versions were kinder than others. I hear, Mrs. Worthing said over tea to Mrs. Harrow, that the poor girl made a joke at Lady Beatrice's expense. Imagine having the courage. I heard, Mrs. Harrow replied, that the prince defended her politely but firmly. That suggests regard. And I heard, another lady joined in, that the child all but proposed on his behalf. Laughter fluttered around the room. Children are harmless, someone said. In their words, perhaps, another replied, not in the echoes they leave behind. Edmund Hale heard those echoes as well. He heard his name linked with Evelyn's in a way he did not like. He heard himself described as the man who deserted a lady on her birthday, the gentleman whose discarded fiancée had caught a prince's attention. The last part pricked him more than he would ever admit. One afternoon, as Evelyn walked alone along the crescent, grateful for the cool air, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Miss Carter. She stiffened. She could have kept walking. She could have pretended not to hear, but years of training in politeness turned her despite herself. Mr. Hale, she said. He tipped his hat, attempting a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. You are looking well, he said. I doubt that, she replied. He cleared his throat. I had not expected you to be abroad so soon, he said. My mother believes fresh air is an antidote to gossip, she said. Ah, he shifted. I see you have lost none of your spirited answers. I have lost many other things, she said. I must keep something. He winced. Evelyn, he began, lowering his voice. I wish to speak with you in private, if possible. The Crescent is hardly private, she said, but I suppose it is less public than the restaurant. Colour rose in his cheeks. You must know, he said, that I did not intend to humiliate you. Intent does not change effect, she replied. I believed it better to be honest, he persisted. To end things before it was too late. Too late for what? She asked. For your family to exchange me for a better offer. He spread his hands helplessly. You know how things are, he said. My parents have expectations. There are considerations beyond affection. Yes, she said. I know that very well now. He looked around, ensuring no one was close enough to hear. There is talk, he said. Wild talk. About you. And Prince Henry. Her back straightened. There is little I can do about talk, she said. Some say he is interested in you, Edmund went on. Others say you are encouraging his attention. She stared at him. I have done nothing of the sort, she said. Any attention he has shown has been courtesy for his daughter's sake. Children do not choose such moments on their own, Edmund said. Someone must have fostered that connection. Her eyes flashed. Do you suggest I instructed a prince's child to ask me to be her mother? She demanded. I suggest nothing, he said quickly. I only say what people say. They claim you are cleverer than you seem, that you saw an opportunity and took it. The words hit harder than his earlier rejection. I see, she said tightly. Yesterday I was too romantic. Today I am cunning. It seems no version of me pleases you. He looked uncomfortable. I came, he said, to offer, well, to say that if you wish it, we might— She raised a hand, stopping him. If you intend to suggest that we resume our engagement, she said, you may spare your breath. You do not know what you refuse, he snapped. I refuse to be taken back out of convenience, she said. You did not want me when I was only Miss Carter. You will not have me now as a shield against gossip. He flinched as if struck. I am trying to help you, he insisted. If the prince has noticed you, that does not mean he intends honorable courtship. Men of his rank have other arrangements. She went cold. You overstep, she said. I speak truth, he said. Better you be my wife in a respectable if modest home than some whispered name in a royal scandal. I would rather be no one's wife, she said, than yours under such terms. He drew himself up. Very well, he said. If you prefer to chase shadows of grandeur, do so. But do not say later that you were not warned. Who says I chase anything? She replied. I am standing where I was left. It is others who keep arriving uninvited. His mouth twisted. Good day, Miss Carter, he said. She watched him go, her hands trembling. Later that evening, when she recounted the meeting to her parents, her mother wrung her hands. Edmund is a fool, Mrs. Carter said, but he is not entirely wrong. A prince may smile kindly today and forget your name tomorrow. I know, Evelyn said. I have no intention of leaning on his kindness. Her father looked at her closely. Do you like him? He asked. The prince. She hesitated. I like the way he speaks to his daughter, she said. I like that he did not let them blame me for Amelia's innocence. That is all. That is not quite all, Mr. Carter said, but he did not press her. While Bath continued to hum with its own dramas, the capital did not sleep. News of Henry's stay in Bath and of a certain scene in the pump room reached ears that mattered. They did not yet know Evelyn's name, but they knew enough. A commoner, recently jilted, now public object of a child's affection and a prince's awkward defence. It was not much, but it was sufficient to sharpen concerns already present. In Henry's temporary lodging in Bath, a respectable house, comfortably furnished but not ostentatious, letters arrived daily. Dalton, his private secretary, brought them to his desk one morning, placing the most important on top. From Lord Pembroke, sir, Dalton said. Marked urgent. Everything is marked urgent these days, Henry replied, breaking the seal. He read in silence. Dalton waited, hands behind his back. Well? Dalton asked quietly when Henry looked up. Pembroke has heard rumours, Henry said. He is very distressed on my behalf. I assume he is more distressed on behalf of the Crown, Dalton said. What does he say precisely? Henry scanned the letter again. He speaks of my susceptibility to sentiment, Henry said. He warns that any appearance of partiality toward a woman of unsuitable rank will be misunderstood. By whom? Dalton asked. Gossips in Bath? Or men in London? By everyone who finds it convenient, Henry said. He reminds me that my remarriage is not a private matter, that my choice of bride will affect alliances, perceptions, everything. Dalton nodded. He has not been subtle about that in his last 10 letters. Henry set the paper down. This time he has a name, he said. Dalton raised his eyebrows. A name? Lady Charlotte Ashcombe, Henry said. The Duke's daughter. Widowed last year. Young, well-connected, impeccably behaved. Pembroke writes as though he is describing a thoroughbred. Dalton considered. Lady Charlotte is admired, he said. She would be approved by the palace. She is known to be sensible. Sensible, Henry repeated. A useful quality in a ledger, less compelling in a marriage. Many would argue otherwise, Dalton said. Many are not expected to live with her, Henry replied. Dalton smiled faintly. Does Lord Pembroke know of Miss Carter by name? He asked. Henry shook his head. Not yet, he said. He speaks only of the lady in Bath. He assumes she is a passing sympathizer. He urges me to avoid any action that could be misinterpreted. Like defending her in the pump room, Dalton said. That apparently was unwise, Henry said. Do you regret it? Dalton asked. Henry thought of Evelyn's pale, steady face, of her saying, I must keep something, of Amelia clutching at her skirts. No, he said. I do not. Dalton nodded, as if he had expected that answer. You know they will not let this rest, Dalton said. If you show any further attention to her, names will be found, histories will be examined, motives will be invented. I have done nothing beyond accepting my daughter's affection for a woman who was kind to her, Henry said. That is not how it will be told, Dalton replied. Henry leaned back in his chair. What would you have me do? He asked. Snatch Amelia away every time she sees Miss Carter? Pretend not to recognize a lady I have been introduced to, simply to keep Pembroke calm? I would have you be cautious, Dalton said. I would have you ask yourself whether Miss Carter deserves to have her name dragged through the mud of court politics. Henry stared at him. That is precisely what Beatrice said, he muttered. Then perhaps you should listen, Dalton said gently. Henry rose and walked to the window. Outside he could see the tops of trees, the roofs of Bath, the faint line of the hills beyond. None of it gave an answer. Amelia speaks of her constantly, he said. She has not attached herself so quickly to anyone since Margaret died. That is significant, Dalton said, but significance is not the same as destiny. Henry half smiled. You sound like a philosopher, he said. I am a secretary who reads too many letters, Dalton replied. A knock sounded at the door. Enter, Henry said. The footman came in, bowing. Your Highness, he said. Lady Beatrice is here to see you. She is accompanied by Lord Pembroke's man. They say it is a matter of urgency. Henry and Dalton exchanged a look. Show them in, Henry said. Lady Beatrice entered first, composed as ever. Behind her came a man Henry knew all too well, Mr. Graves, Lord Pembroke's representative, a thin, precise man whose manners were as sharp as his pen. Cousin, Lady Beatrice said. Mr. Graves brings Lord Pembroke's concerns in more tangible form. Graves bowed deeply. Your Highness, he said, I beg your pardon for the intrusion. His lordship felt it unwise to delay. Lord Pembroke rarely delays when he is anxious, Henry said. What is it this time, my choice of tea? Graves did not smile. Your Highness is witty, he said. I fear the matter is more serious than tea. May I? He stepped forward and placed a folded document on the desk. Henry did not pick it up. What is this? He asked. A memorandum, Graves said, endorsed by several of His Highness's senior advisers. It clarifies their expectations regarding your future. Domestic arrangements. Domestic arrangements, Henry repeated. You mean my marriage? In essence, yes, Graves said. They believe it would be wise to settle the question before idle speculation grows any louder. Lady Beatrice watched Henry carefully. They have named a particular lady, she said. Lady Charlotte Ashcombe. I've heard, Henry said. Pembroke has been most industrious. Graves inclined his head. Lady Charlotte is universally respected, he said. Her marriage to your Highness would be welcomed by the court, by Parliament, and by foreign powers. And if I do not wish to marry her? Henry asked. Graves's expression did not change. The memorandum does not compel, he said smoothly. It merely records that your Highness recognizes the wisdom of such a union and agrees to avoid actions that would render it impossible. Dalton glanced at Henry. And what actions would those be? Henry asked, his voice quieter. Graves hesitated a fraction of a second. Any public demonstration of attachment to a woman of inferior rank, he said. Any hint of courtship directed towards someone the advisers cannot support. Any continued association that might cause misunderstanding. You mean Miss Carter? Henry said. Graves's gaze flicked to Lady Beatrice, then back. The document does not mention names, he said. It need not. Henry gave a short, humorless laugh. Everyone knows then, he said. Everyone has heard about one scene in a tea room and decided to direct my heart accordingly. No one presumes to direct your heart, Graves said. Only your conduct. Which, in my position, is the same thing, Henry said. Lady Beatrice stepped forward. Henry, she said softly, they are giving you a choice. Not between Miss Carter and Lady Charlotte, between a quiet, manageable future and a constant storm. We both know how little strength you have left for storms. He looked at her. "Do you think so little of me?" he asked. "I think much of you," she said. "That is why I do not wish to see you torn to pieces by those who care nothing for your happiness. If you attach yourself to a woman they cannot accept, they will use it against you at every turn. And she will suffer most of all." Graves nudged the paper toward him slightly. "Signing this," he said, "signals your understanding. It assures your advisors that you will not entangle yourself in a situation that would make a suitable match difficult." Dalton spoke up at last. "And if His Highness declines to sign?" he asked. Graves' mouth thinned. "Then his advisors," he said, "will be forced to reconsider their support. They will still fulfill their duties, of course, but their enthusiasm will be diminished, and that will be noticed, at home and abroad." Henry heard the unspoken words. Funding withheld, measures delayed, influence weakened. A future throne approached with suspicion rather than confidence, all because a little girl had asked a grieving woman to be her mother. Graves pushed the inkstand forward. "Your Highness," he said, "we do not ask much, only that you commit here in writing to pursuing a path that all agree is wise. You are free to take your time in arranging the engagement itself, but a written assurance will quiet many fears." Henry stared at the document. "I should like to know," he said slowly, "exactly what I am being asked to sign away." Lady Beatrice met his eyes. "The right," she said, "to let your heart wander where it pleases, when so many depend on it being steady." His hands curled at his sides. He looked from Beatrice to Graves, then to Dalton, who watched him with a troubled frown. The room seemed smaller than it had a moment before. On the desk, the memorandum lay waiting, the blank line at the bottom like a silent dare. Dalton's voice was very soft. "Sir," he said, "whatever you choose it with your eyes open." Henry reached out and turned the paper toward him, scanning the neat lines of ink. The phrases were careful, measured, impossible to attack. In agreeing to consider Lady Charlotte, in refraining from any imprudent alliance, in maintaining the dignity of his station. His gaze lingered on that last phrase. Maintain the dignity of your station. He thought of Evelyn's face at the table, of Amelia's small hand in hers, of Edmund's expression as he left her with a cake and no future, of the way she had stood in the pump room, unflinching beneath 100 eyes. Graves dipped the quill and set it beside the paper, the feather trembling slightly in the air. "Your Highness," he said, "if you please." Henry looked at the quill, then at the waiting signatures of the men who tried to shape his life, and understood that they would not leave the room until he chose between the crown and the woman his daughter already called hers. Henry did not reach for the quill. The room was very quiet. Dalton watched him. Lady Beatrice watched him. "Mr." Graves watched him with the patient intensity of a man who is used to being obeyed in ink, if not in words. "Your Highness," Graves said gently, "it is a formality, nothing more." Henry smiled without humor. "I have learned," he said, "that formalities are rarely nothing." Graves inclined his head. "They are the bones that hold up the body of our world," he said. "Without them, all collapses into sentiment and whim." "And is there no place at all," Henry asked, "for sentiment?" "There is," Graves said, "in private, among family, not in matters that concern the stability of a kingdom." Henry looked down at the memorandum again. "If I sign this," he said slowly, "and later find that I cannot marry Lady Charlotte, what then?" Graves hesitated. "Then your advisers," he said, "will feel misled. Their confidence will be shaken. The damage might be worse than if no assurance had been given." "So I would be bound," Henry said. "Bound by honor," Graves replied, "which is the only binding that matters for a man in your position." Lady Beatrice stepped closer. "Henry," she said quietly, "you cannot build a life on defiance. It will exhaust you, and it will not change the rules." He looked at her. "Do you truly believe I should promise myself to a woman I do not know?" he asked, "only to avoid the possibility that I might care for someone else?" "I believe," she said, "that you should promise yourself to a future that is survivable. Lady Charlotte is not a monster. She is kind and intelligent. You might grow to esteem her." "And if I already esteem another?" he asked. Graves' eyes sharpened. "Your Highness," he said, "is there such a person?" Henry held his gaze. "I will not discuss the state of my heart with a committee," he said, "but I will say this. I cannot sign a paper that assumes my choice is already made, when it is not." Graves clasped his hands more tightly behind his back. "No one can force your hand," he said. "We can only advise, strongly." "You have done so," Henry said. "I have heard, and I choose not to sign." Graves blinked. "Your Highness," he said, "you do not fully appreciate the consequences." "I think I do," Henry said. "You will frown. Pembroke will sigh. Some doors will close a little faster. Some support will become slower, more grudging. And in the newspapers," Graves added, "your refusal will be read as a sign of instability, of romantic weakness." Henry smiled faintly. "Let them say I am weak," he said. "I am tired of being praised for being made of stone." Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed. "Henry," she said, "do not be careless." "I am not careless," he said, turning to her. "I am careful, so careful that for years I did nothing but what was expected. I married as I was told. I spoke as I was advised, and I buried my wife under a mountain of regrets I was not allowed to voice. I will not add another regret to that grave, just because Lord Pembroke is afraid of a whisper in a tea-room." Graves opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Then you refuse?" he asked. "Yes," Henry said simply. Graves bowed, the motion precise and stiff. "In that case," he said, "I must inform Lord Pembroke at once. He will be disappointed." "I have disappointed him before," Henry said. "He survived." Graves turned to go, then hesitated. "Your Highness," he said, "for your own sake, and for the lady's, I urge you to consider what attention from you will do to her life. Even if you never mean to marry her, you may survive scandal. She may not." Henry's jaw tightened. "That is precisely why I will not treat her as a passing amusement," he said. "If I cannot offer her respect, I will offer her nothing." Graves studied him, then bowed again and left. The door closed softly behind him. Silence settled again. Lady Beatrice let out a long breath. "You have chosen the harder road," she said. "I know," he replied. "Do you intend," she asked, "to walk all of it?" He met her eyes. "If she will allow it," he said. "Yes." Lady Beatrice closed her eyes for a moment, as if fighting two impulses at once. "She will be crucified," she said bluntly. "They will pick apart her family, her manners, her past. They will say she schemed for this." "She did not," he said. "They will not care," she replied. "Then it is my task," he said, "to make it clear that the choice is mine." She regarded him, then nodded grudgingly. "Very well," she said. "If you insist on inviting a storm, I will at least hold an umbrella where I can." Something loosened in his chest. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Do not thank me yet," she replied. "I may still attempt to talk you out of things at inconvenient moments." "I would expect nothing less," he said. Dalton, who had been silent, spoke. "Sir," he said, "what would you like me to do with Lord Pembroke's letters?" "File them," Henry said, "under regrettable but not decisive." Dalton smiled. "And Lady Charlotte?" he asked. "Will you receive her if she comes to Bath?" "I will receive her with perfect civility," Henry said. "I will treat her with every respect. But I will not pretend a promise that does not exist." Lady Beatrice nodded. "That at least is wise," she said. "You may yet avoid the worst of the damage." Outside their little circle, the world continued to chatter. News of Lord Pembroke's displeasure did not reach Bath at once, but rumours of Lady Charlotte's visit did. Someone had a cousin in London, someone had a friend in the Duke's household, someone overheard a footman. By the time a handsome carriage with the Ashcombe crest rolled through the streets, half of Bath was already craning their necks. Evelyn heard of it at Mrs. Harrow's tea table. "Lady Charlotte," Mrs. Harrow breathed, "here, in our little city. Imagine." "She is very beautiful," said Mrs. Worthing, "and very composed. I saw her once in London, not a hair out of place, not a word wasted." "She must be terrified to meet the prince," a younger lady said. "Nonsense," Mrs. Worthing replied. "Women like that are never terrified. They marry princes as other women marry clerks." Evelyn stirred her tea, her face steady. "And what brings Lady Charlotte to Bath?" Mrs. Carter asked lightly. "Oh, her health, of course," Mrs. Harrow said. "They always say that, do they not? A change of air, a little rest. And if there happens to be a certain royal personage taking the waters at the same time, well, she cannot be held responsible for the alignments of the stars." Soft laughter. "Everyone knows why she is here," Mrs. Worthing said. "Her father is no fool. Lord Pembroke is no fool. They are building a future." Evelyn's spoon clinked against the cup. Mrs. Harrow leaned closer. "They say," she whispered, "that there is even a memorandum in London, a written understanding. The prince will marry Lady Charlotte, and all will be tidy." Evelyn's heart lurched. "A memorandum," she repeated. "Men love papers," Mrs. Harrow said. "They think if something is written down it becomes real." Evelyn forced a smile. "Then congratulations to Lady Charlotte," she said. "It must be comforting to have one's future explained so clearly." Mrs. Carter glanced at her daughter, worry tightening her mouth. On the walk home she spoke. "You must not take this personally," she said. "Even if it is true, it has nothing to do with you. Princes must marry as they are told. That is the way of things." "I know," Evelyn said. "Even if he admired you for a day," her mother went on, "it could never have been anything. Better that he marry someone like Lady Charlotte, someone born to it." "I know," Evelyn said again. "Do you?" her mother asked softly. Evelyn did not answer. At home, she went to her room and closed the door. She stared at the small writing desk by the window. The ink, the paper, the pen. If he is to marry her, she thought, then I must help him. I must not stand in the way, even by accident. Amelia's face rose in her mind. The child's firm little voice. "You may be mine." Her chest ached. She sat down. On a clean sheet of paper, she wrote, "Your Highness, please forgive the liberty of this letter. I would not trouble you if I did not believe it necessary. I have heard, as all Bath has heard, that a very suitable lady has arrived with the expectation of your notice. Whether this is true or only rumor, I cannot say. But I know that my own name has been unfortunately linked with yours in ways that can serve neither of us. I am deeply grateful for your kindness to me in difficult moments and for the affection your dear daughter has shown. But that very affection makes me fearful that I may, without meaning to, cause trouble to you both. I hope you will believe me when I say that I have no wish to interfere with your duty or your happiness. For that reason, I think it best that I withdraw from any further acquaintance. I shall not seek your presence, nor will I encourage your daughter's attachment, however much it pains me to see her disappointed. Please tell Amelia that I shall always remember her with fondness, but that some wishes cannot be granted however dearly we may hold them. With sincere respect, Evelyn Carter." She read it twice. It hurt to see her own words, but each sentence felt necessary. She sealed the letter and sent it by a reliable messenger, with strict instructions that it be delivered to the prince's residence and placed into the hands of his secretary. Then she went back to her chair and sat very still. In the prince's house, Dalton brought the letter in on a tray. "From Miss Carter," he said. Henry's hand closed around it before he quite realized he had moved. He broke the seal. He read quickly, then more slowly. By the last line, his jaw was tight. Dalton waited. "She believes the rumors," Henry said. "Rumors have a way of sounding like truth when repeated often enough," Dalton replied. "She thinks," Henry went on, "that by stepping back, she is helping me." "Is she not?" Dalton asked gently. Henry looked at him sharply. "You think I should let her go?" he asked. "I think," Dalton said, "that if you do not intend to fight for her, you should let her go. I also think that if you intend to fight, you must do it openly. Half measures will only prolong the pain." Henry looked back at the letter. "I refuse to sign Pembroke's memorandum," he said. "I told Graves I would not promise what I cannot give. Does that sound like a man who means to surrender quietly?" "No," Dalton said. "It sounds like a man who must now decide what he does mean to give." Henry folded the letter carefully. "Send for my carriage," he said. Dalton blinked. "Now?" he asked. "To go where?" "To Mr. Carter's house," Henry said. "I am tired of being spoken for by others. I will be understood by the one person who has the most right to misunderstand me." Dalton nodded. "I shall arrange it," he said. "Discreetly," Henry added, "but not secretly. I am not ashamed of visiting a respectable gentleman's home." Within the hour, the Carter household was in an uproar. The knock at the door had been like any other. The footman had opened it as usual. Then he had gone pale. "Mr. Carter, sir," he stammered. "It is His Highness. The Prince of Westford, he is in the hall." Mrs. Carter nearly dropped her knitting. "In our hall," she whispered. "In our house," Mr. Carter said, already rising. Compose yourself. Evelyn. Evelyn had been in the parlor, pretending to read. At the words, her book slipped from her hand. In our house? She echoed. Do not just repeat everything, her mother said faintly. Stand up. Straighten your hair. No, not like that. Oh, heavens. Mr. Carter gave them both a quick, firm look. We will remember, he said, that we are not beggars. We are respectable people. We will not act as though this is a miracle. It is a visit from the heir to the throne, Mrs. Carter muttered, to call upon our daughter, for no reason anyone can explain. There is a reason, Evelyn said under her breath. My letter. Her heart thudded. The door opened. Henry stepped into the parlor, hat in hand. He wore no sash, no glittering medals, only a dark coat and an air of steady purpose. Mr. Carter, he said, bowing. Mrs. Carter, Miss Carter. They all bowed or curtsied in return. Your Highness, Mr. Carter said, our house is honored. Your house does me a kindness, Henry said. I come unannounced. I hope you will forgive the intrusion. We forgive it entirely, Mrs. Carter said, then flushed. That is, please sit, sir. If you wish to sit, we have chairs. Mr. Carter coughed. Tea, he said. We must offer tea. Tea is not necessary, Henry said. This visit will not be long. There are matters we must discuss. His gaze rested on Evelyn. I received your letter, Miss Carter, he said. I am here because of it. Evelyn clasped her hands together to steady them. I feared it might trouble you, she said. That was not my intention. It did trouble me, he replied. That is why I am here. Mrs. Carter shifted. Sir, she began, if my daughter has overstepped, she has not overstepped, Henry said. She has shown more sense and more generosity than most of those whose task it is to advise me. Mr. Carter cleared his throat. If you wish to speak privately with Evelyn, he said, my wife and I can withdraw to the next room. We shall remain within call, of course. Henry nodded. That would be appropriate, he said. Thank you. Mrs. Carter squeezed Evelyn's shoulder as she passed. Do not faint, she whispered. Whatever you do, it is very difficult to curtsy while unconscious. Evelyn almost laughed. Then the door closed behind her parents and she was alone with the prince. Your Highness, she said quietly, if my letter was unwelcome, I beg you to consider it unwritten. It was not unwelcome, he said. It was painful, but honest. I would not have you unsay your honesty. She folded her hands more tightly. I only wished, she said, to relieve you of any obligation you might feel toward me. I know what your position requires. I know your advisers must be pressing you toward Lady Charlotte. It seemed wrong for me to add to that burden. You are not a burden, he said. She looked up. Perhaps not to you, she said, but to your cousin, to Lord Pembroke, to those men in London who send memoranda. I am sure they do not see me as a blessing. You know of the memorandum? He asked. She shook her head. Only as gossip, she said. Mrs. Harrow values information more than truth. He smiled faintly. In this case, he said, information and truth are not far apart. There was a memorandum. It urged me to commit myself in principle to Lady Charlotte, and to avoid any connection that might interfere with that. And did you sign it? She asked. No, he said simply. She stared at him. No, she repeated. No, he said again. I refused. I will not promise my life to a woman I do not know, simply to ease Lord Pembroke's mind. And I will not pretend that my heart is unaffected by someone else, simply to keep my path tidy. Her breath came a little faster. Someone else, she said. You mean, I mean you, he said. The words hung between them. She shook her head slightly. That cannot be wise, she whispered. It is not, he said frankly. It is in fact deeply inconvenient for a great many important people. But I am very tired of arranging my soul according to their convenience. She sank onto the nearest chair. Your Highness, she said, you must be careful. People will say I have bewitched you. If you had bewitched me, he said, I imagine my mind would be less clear than it is now. And what is your mind telling you? She asked. That you are a woman who has been wronged, he said, and yet refuses to collapse. That you are kind to a child who clings to you. That you make jests in front of a room that would happily see you crumble. That you think first of my position and my daughter's peace before you think of your own heart. You hardly know me, she murmured. Perhaps not as well as I would wish, he said. But what I have seen, I esteem. She looked down at her hands. I do not know how to move in your world, she said. I do not know how to stand beside you without stumbling. I would not have you stand beside me as a decoration, he said. If you ever stand there, it must be as yourself. With your wit, your doubts, your courage. I can hire a dozen ladies to wear jewels and smile. I do not want a dozen. I want one. And I would rather she wrinkle her nose at half the court than flatter them all and despise me in private. She looked up again. What are you asking of me? She whispered. He drew a breath. I am not asking for your hand today, he said. That would be unfair. To you, to your family, even to Amelia, who would think tomorrow's breakfast our wedding feast. But I am asking for permission to court you openly, respectfully, with your father's consent, to give you and myself the chance to know whether this esteem might grow into something strong enough to weather what must come. Her heart pounded. Court me, she repeated, as if you were any other gentleman. As far as is possible, he said. There will be differences, of course. There will be more eyes than usual, more whispers, more interference. But at the core it would be the same. Visits, conversation, time spent together under proper supervision, an honest intention. And if, after all that, she said softly, you decide that Lady Charlotte is easier or safer, he met her gaze. Then I will marry no one, he said. I cannot promise to marry you before you know whether you wish it, but I can promise this. I will not use you as a shield against loneliness and then set you aside for convenience. I have seen what that looks like. I will not become another Edmund. She flinched at the name, then relaxed. That is a strong promise, she said. It is the least I can offer, he replied. She was silent for a long moment. You are asking me, she said slowly, to step into a path where I will be judged, resented, perhaps even hated by those who think themselves above me. Yes, he said. You are asking me, she went on, to risk my name, which is already frayed, on the hope that you will stand firm when they press you harder than they have yet done. Yes, he said again. She drew a breath. And what do I gain if I agree? She asked. He did not hesitate. You gain the chance, he said, to be loved by a man who has learned too late the value of honesty, to be mother to a child who already adores you, to be yourself, in rooms that would otherwise never hear your voice, and perhaps, if the world does not crush us for our trouble, to help shape a future that is a little kinder than the past. Her eyes shone. You speak as if you need me, she said. I do, he answered, not to polish my crown, to remind me that I am more than it. There was a soft knock at the door. Come, Mr. Carter's voice called from the other side. Is everything... that is, may we... Henry glanced at Evelyn. Shall we let them in? He asked. Yes, she said. Mr. and Mrs. Carter entered cautiously, as if expecting tears or fainting. Instead, they found their daughter sitting, hands clasped, eyes bright, and a prince standing very straight, looking oddly like a man asking for a favor he was not entirely sure of receiving. Mr. Carter, Henry said, I have asked your daughter's permission to court her. I should like now to ask for yours. Mrs. Carter clapped a hand over her mouth. Mr. Carter simply stared. To court her, he repeated. You mean, with the intention of marriage? If, after a proper period of acquaintance, she still wishes it, Henry said. I ask for nothing more than the chance to earn that wish. Mr. Carter blinked several times. Your Highness, he said slowly, you must know how unexpected this is. I do, Henry said. It is somewhat unexpected to me as well. Mr. Carter's mouth twitched into a disbelieving smile. Evelyn, he said, is this also what you wish? She rose. I do not fully know what I wish, she said honestly. I know I care for him, and for Amelia. I know I am frightened, but I also know that if I refuse without trying, I will wonder all my life what might have been. Her father looked at her for a long moment, weighing the fear and the hope in her face. Then he turned back to Henry. I am a modest man, he said. I have no title, no great fortune. I have always expected my daughters to marry within the circles we understand. But I have also told them that if they are offered respect and kindness, they should not reject it out of false modesty. He drew a breath. If you treat my daughter with honor, he said, I will not stand in your way. You have my consent to call upon her, to walk in our modest garden, To sit in this very room and talk of whatever princes talk of when they wish to be men instead. Henry's shoulders lowered slightly, as if some invisible weight shifted. You have my word, he said. I will treat her with the honor she deserves. Mrs. Carter's eyes were wet. I do not know how to curtsy for that, she said, so I shall just say, thank you, sir, for seeing her. It is I who should thank her, Henry said, for allowing herself to be seen. A small figure appeared in the doorway, cheeks flushed from exertion. Papa, everyone turned. Amelia stood there, having slipped past an apologetic maid. Her hair was slightly messy, her doll crooked under her arm. Amelia, Henry said, you were meant to remain at home. Nurse said you came to see someone, Amelia said. She said it was not my affair, but Mama's are my affair. She spotted Evelyn. There you are, she cried, running into the room. I knew you did not disappear. Evelyn laughed, bending to catch her. I thought of you, Amelia said breathlessly. Every day. Did you think of me? Every day, Evelyn replied. Amelia looked at her father, then at the Carters, then back at Evelyn. Is it settled? She demanded. Are you my new mama now? Henry smiled. Not yet, he said. But we are beginning to see whether it may be so. Amelia frowned. Grown-ups are very slow, she said. But this is better than nothing. She climbed into Evelyn's lap, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Henry watched them, something like peace in his eyes. The dangers had not vanished. The whispers would not stop. Letters from London would still arrive, full of warnings and disapproval. Lady Charlotte would still be in Bath, the embodiment of the easier road not taken. But in that small parlour, with Mr. and Mrs. Carter sitting close together, with Amelia chattering about gardens and cakes, and with Evelyn's hand resting lightly on the child's shoulder, Henry felt for the first time in years that he had chosen something not because it was expected, but because it was right. And Evelyn, looking around at her parents' astonished faces and at the prince who had come to her door without a memorandum in his pocket, realized that her life no longer lay in the ruins of a broken birthday, but in a path she had never imagined she might be allowed to walk. Spring moved quietly into Bath, softening the edges of everything that had felt harsh in winter. In the Carter house, it arrived in the form of footsteps on the gravel path outside, at least twice a week. The neighbours learned quickly that when a dark carriage stopped at the modest gate, curtains stirred up and down the street. Do not look, Mrs. Carter would hiss, while leaning subtly toward the window herself. He will think we are desperate. We are desperate, Mr. Carter would murmur. We are simply pretending not to be. Henry never pretended. He came at the hours he had promised, neither too often nor too rarely. He sat in the parlour, speaking with Mr. and Mrs. Carter as attentively as he spoke with ministers. He listened to Mr. Carter's stories of business and apprentices. He laughed at Mrs. Carter's brisk comments about Bath society. Then, in the safe spaces of a small garden or a quiet churchyard walk, he and Evelyn talked. They did not speak of great state secrets. They spoke of smaller things that showed the shape of a life. I do not know how to order a palace, Evelyn admitted once, as they walked slowly beneath the young leaves. I struggle enough with 2 maids and my mother's opinions. I do not know how to order a palace either, he said. That is why there are people whose only task is to fret over curtains and doorways. You need not concern yourself with it. And what must I concern myself with, she asked. With Amelia's ribbons, he said, and my tendency to forget my gloves, and whether I am in danger of taking myself too seriously. You are, she said at once. He smiled. Amelia was usually with them, allowed to run ahead in the path, picking flowers, telling stories, reminding them that the world was bigger than what people said in drawing rooms. Lady Evelyn, she said once, then corrected herself at a look from her father. Miss Evelyn, when you are my mamma, may we keep a cat? Amelia, Henry said, we have not decided anything yet. You have decided, she said. You just have not said it in church. Evelyn laughed, but her cheeks coloured. Perhaps, she said, we shall begin with a cat and work upward. Rumours did not stop, of course, they never stopped. But they changed. At first, people whispered that the courtship was a temporary fancy, a way for the prince to amuse himself before yielding to duty. As weeks passed and Henry's visits did not lessen, new theories appeared. Perhaps he means to make her a quiet favourite, some said darkly. He would not, others replied. Not openly, with her parents present. He is not that sort of man. You are romantic, came the retorts. Men in power are all the same. But then, a different voice began to be heard. I met Miss Carter, Lady Worthing said one day. She is not calculating. She looks as though she expects to wake every morning and find this has all been a dream. Perhaps that is what makes it real, someone answered. Lady Beatrice watched, listened, and did not interfere much. She visited the Carter house once, unannounced. Mrs. Carter nearly dropped the tea tray. Evelyn almost dropped herself. Lady Beatrice, Mr. Carter said, bowing awkwardly. This is an honor. It is a necessity, Lady Beatrice replied. If my cousin insists on tearing up the map, I must at least see where he intends to walk. She sat opposite Evelyn and studied her. So, she said, you are the girl with the cake. I'm trying to be someone more than that, Evelyn said, meeting her gaze. Good, Lady Beatrice said. He needs someone who does not cling to her worst moment as her identity. Evelyn blinked. That is a strangely kind thing to say, she said. Lady Beatrice snorted softly. Do not become sentimental about me, she said. I am not here to make friends. I am here to ensure that if you do join our family, you do not go in with illusions. I have very few left, Evelyn said. Excellent, Lady Beatrice replied. Illusions are hard to dust. They spoke for nearly an hour. Lady Beatrice asked direct questions. Evelyn answered honestly, sometimes too honestly, she feared. At the end, Lady Beatrice rose. I see the attraction, she said. Evelyn's face warmed. In him? She asked. In both of you, Lady Beatrice said. He likes your courage. You like his. That will be useful. You will need it. She moved toward the door, then paused. As for Lady Charlotte, she said, you need not fear her. Evelyn stiffened. I do not fear her, she said. I simply can respect what she represents. Good, Lady Beatrice said again. Respect her in person as well. She is not your enemy. She is not, Evelyn asked. Lady Beatrice shook her head faintly. She arrived, she said. She met him. She saw him watching the door and the window, as if he expected someone else to appear. She is no fool. She understood. What did she say? Evelyn whispered. Lady Beatrice's mouth softened. She said, Beatrice replied, that she had no wish to marry a man who looked like that at the sight of another woman. She would rather be a respected widow than a tolerated wife. Evelyn exhaled. I like her, she said, surprising herself. You should, Lady Beatrice said. She may save you a great deal of hatred by refusing to be a rival. Will she suffer for that choice? Evelyn asked. She has land, money, a strong mind, and no father inclined to force her to the altar, Lady Beatrice said. She will be perfectly well. Do not waste your pity on those who can afford to decline a prince. After that visit, something eased in Evelyn's heart. The path ahead was still steep, but at least she knew she was not stepping directly onto the back of another woman. Time moved. It did not rush. It crawled and leapt by turns. There were days of quiet contentment and days when letters from London made Henry grind his teeth. Pembroke has found a new argument, Henry said once, dropping a letter onto Dalton's desk. He claims that marrying a commoner will make me beloved by the wrong sort of people. What is the wrong sort? Dalton asked. The ones who can vote? Henry laughed despite himself. They say my popularity is a dangerous thing, he said, that it might make the crown too dependent on the affection of the masses. Affection is a poor substitute for a budget, Dalton replied. But it is not nothing. Henry took the letter home, then didn't answer it for 3 days. When he finally did, his reply was brief. I have considered all your arguments, he wrote. My decision remains unchanged. If the crown cannot bear the weight of one honest marriage, it is weaker than I thought. Summer came. With it came Evelyn's birthday again. She woke that morning with a strange tightness in her chest. The memory of the previous year pressed close. Do not think of it, Mrs. Carter said firmly, entering her room with a neat bundle of ribbons. Think of today. I am trying, Evelyn said, but last year keeps waving at me from the corner. Wave back and shut the door, her mother said. Now, put up your hair. We must be ready. Ready for what? Evelyn asked. Her mother's eyes slid away. For whatever happens, she said vaguely. Your father is unusually secretive. I suspect he has been influenced by higher powers. Higher powers, Evelyn repeated. Princes, her mother muttered, and their schemes. By afternoon, the answer appeared. Henry's carriage arrived, but not alone. Another followed it, this one bearing Amelia and her nurse. Servants carried something carefully from the back, a large, familiar shape covered with cloth. In the parlour, Henry bowed. "Miss Carter," he said. "First allow me to offer what Edmund never did." She arched a brow. "What is that?" she asked. "A proper birthday greeting," he said. "Happy birthday." She smiled. "Thank you," she said. "It is already a better one." "Not yet," he said. "We have only begun." He clapped his hands softly. At his signal, servants carried the covered object into the room and set it on the table. Amelia bounced beside them. "Do it now," she whispered. "Papa, may I?" "Gently," he said. On 3, they counted together. 1, 2, 3. Amelia whipped away the cloth. A cake stood on the table, larger than the one from the restaurant, but simple. White icing, 1 candle, and on top, in neat letters, the same word as before, Evelyn. She stared. "You ordered a cake," she said faintly. "I did," Henry replied. "A year ago, another man watched you sit in front of one and walked away. I thought it fitting that today, a different man bring you one and remain." "That is a very dramatic gesture," she said, her voice trembling. "I have been told I lack dramatics," he said. "I am attempting to improve." Her parents watched from their chairs, both misty-eyed. Amelia tugged Evelyn's hand. "You must make a wish," she insisted. "A new one, not the one from last year. That one was wrong." Evelyn laughed, tears blurring her vision. "I think perhaps it was not entirely wrong," she said. "It simply did not know what it was asking for." "Close your eyes," Amelia ordered. Evelyn closed them. She did not wish for rank or riches or the approval of the court. She wished, very simply, to be loved as she was and to have the courage to accept it. When she opened her eyes, Henry was watching her. "Did you wish?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Good," he replied. "Now it is my turn." "Your turn?" she repeated. He nodded to Mr. Carter. "Sir," he said, "with your permission, I should like to borrow your parlour for something slightly more memorable than tea." "You have it," Mr. Carter said at once. "We shall pretend we do not see, and of course see everything." Henry stepped closer to Evelyn. He did not kneel. There were too many eyes and too little space. But he took both her hands in his and spoke clearly enough for everyone in the room to hear. "A year ago," he said, "I saw you at your lowest moment. You had been cast aside without mercy. You believed yourself humiliated. But when my daughter approached you, you did not push her away. You dried your tears and made room for her on a chair that should have been occupied by someone who did not deserve it." "Do not be unkind," she whispered. "I am being accurate," he replied softly. Then louder. "Since that night, I have watched you bear gossip without collapsing. I have heard you speak more honestly than some ministers ever have. I have seen you comfort my child and challenge my cousin. I have learned to smile at your jests and respect your fears. I have discovered that in all the noise around me, your voice is the one I most wish to hear." Her fingers tightened around his. "Henry," she said, almost under her breath. "Evelyn," he answered, letting her name sit between them for a moment. "I cannot promise you a quiet life. I cannot promise that the court will embrace you. I cannot promise that we will never have days when we wish we were two unknown people in a village somewhere, with nothing to manage but a garden and a cat." "I would like a cat," she whispered. "So would Amelia," he said, smiling. "But I can promise you this, if you stand beside me, I will stand beside you. I will not ask you to hide who you are. I will not walk away when others whisper. I will not trade your heart for a memorandum." Her eyes filled again. "You refused it," she said. "I did," he answered. "And I would refuse it 100 times more if it meant I could ask you this today." He drew a breath. "Evelyn Carter," he said, his voice steady, "will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Mrs. Carter put a hand to her mouth. Mr. Carter stared at the floor, then up at the ceiling, as if trying not to burst. Amelia bounced in place. "Say yes," she whispered urgently. "Say yes. Say yes. Say yes." Evelyn laughed through her tears. "You could have asked me in a corner," she said weakly. "In the garden, anywhere less terrifying." "I wanted no one to doubt that this is honorable," he said. that it is my choice, that there is nothing hidden in it. She looked at him. She saw not a prince in that moment, but a man who had known grief and duty and loneliness, holding out his hands as if this were the bravest thing he had ever done. "Yes," she said simply. "I will." Amelia squealed. Mr. Carter exhaled loudly. "Mrs." Carter burst into tears. Henry let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. His shoulders relaxed, his eyes shone. "Thank you," he said softly. "You thank me," she replied, half laughing. "You are the one offering palaces and crowns." "I am offering myself," he said. "The rest is just furniture." Amelia flung her arms around both of them at once. "Now you are my mamma," she declared, "properly, not just almost." "Not quite yet," Henry corrected gently. "There is still the small matter of a wedding." "Oh," Amelia said impatiently, "that is just dressing up and walking slowly. You have already decided." The wedding did involve dressing up and walking slowly. It also involved more people than Evelyn had ever imagined would witness her happiness. It was held in the chapel at Westford House, not in the grand cathedral some expected. Henry insisted. "I do not want our vows to echo off stone where half the congregation came, only to see what you are wearing," he said. "I want them to fall where people actually care what we say." "But people will still talk," she said. "They always will," he replied. "Let them talk about a chapel that was too small for their curiosity. It will give them something fresh to be offended by." On the day itself, Evelyn dressed with shaking hands. Her gown was beautiful, yes, but it was not a costume. It was silk, simple and pure, with lace that had belonged to Henry's mother, offered to her by Lady Beatrice with a gruff, "You might as well have this. No one else has dared wear it." In the mirror, Evelyn saw a face she recognized and did not. The girl with the cake was still there, but she was calmer now, stronger. Her eyes held not just fear, but determination. Her father entered, already in his best suit. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. "No," she said. "Yes, I do not know," he smiled. "Then you are exactly as a bride should be," he said. "If you were entirely calm, I would suspect you were marrying the wrong man." He offered his arm. The chapel was full but not crowded. Friends, some family, a scattering of nobles, and a few faces from Bath who had earned the right to say they knew her before the world did. As Evelyn walked up the aisle on her father's arm, she saw Lady Beatrice standing straight, watching with something like pride. She saw Dalton near the back, trying not to look moved. She saw Mrs. Harrow dabbing her eyes, and Mrs. Worthing whispering, "I always said so," to anyone who would listen. And at the front, she saw Henry. He wore formal dress, of course, but what mattered was his face. He looked at her as if nothing else in the room existed, as if every doubt he had ever held vanished under the sight of her. Her steps steadied. "You are late," he murmured when she reached him, his eyes dancing. "You are impatient," she replied. The ceremony was not long. Vows were spoken, rings exchanged, blessings given. "Do you, Henry Arthur James of Westford, take this woman?" "I do," he said, and his voice did not shake. "Do you, Evelyn Rose Carter, take this man?" She met his gaze and smiled. "I do," she said. "Very much." When it was done, when they turned to face the small congregation as husband and wife, a murmur ran through the room. It was not disapproval. It was something softer, something like relief. Outside, as they stepped into the light, Henry leaned closer. "Are you overwhelmed?" he asked. "Yes," she said honestly. "But it is a better kind of overwhelming than last year's." He laughed. "If you grow too overwhelmed," he said, "you may hide behind me. I have had practice standing between you and sharp tongues." "I think," she said, glancing at Lady Beatrice, who was firmly shooing away an over-curious lady. "You are not the only one." He followed her gaze. "She has adopted you," he said. "You will never be free now." "I have been adopted before," she replied, looking down at Amelia, who clung to her skirts in new shoes and a solemn expression. "I'm growing used to it." Amelia raised her arms. "Up, Mamma," she said. "I must tell you a secret." Evelyn gathered her up. "What is this secret?" she asked. Amelia cupped a small hand around her ear, though her whisper was not particularly quiet. "You are very beautiful," she said. "Much more than Lady Beatrice. Do not tell her I said that." Henry choked on a laugh. We shall keep it between us, Evelyn said gravely. The celebrations that followed were joyful without being extravagant. There was laughter, music, a modest feast. There were a few stiff faces among distant relatives, but they were outnumbered by those who came forward with sincere good wishes. Lady Charlotte sent a gift and a short note. "I am glad," she wrote, "that you have made your own choice. May we both be allowed to do so?" Evelyn kept the note. Later, when the guests had gone and the house was quieter, Henry and Evelyn walked in a small side garden, Amelia skipping ahead, chasing shadows. "It feels strange," Evelyn said, looking at her hands now adorned with rings. "To have a new name. It is not meant to erase the old one," Henry said. "You are still Evelyn Carter. You have simply collected a Westford along the way." "Evelyn Carter Westford," she tried. "It suits you," he said. "And you?" she asked. "Do you feel different?" He thought for a moment. "Yes," he said. "I feel as though I finally did one thing in my life without flinching." She smiled. "You did not flinch when you refused to sign Pembroke's paper," she reminded him. "I flinched on the inside," he confessed. "Today I did not. Today I only walked toward you." Amelia ran back and grabbed their hands, one in each of hers. "Now we must all walk together," she declared. "So no one falls." Evelyn looked down at her. "Is that how it works?" she asked. "Yes," Amelia said firmly. "If one lets go, the others must hold on tighter. That is a rule, a very good rule," Henry said. They walked like that for a while, three figures linked, moving slowly along a path that no longer seemed so frightening. In the months that followed, life did not become a fairy tale. There were still letters from London, some warmer, some colder. There were still ladies who sniffed at Evelyn's lack of pedigree. There were still moments when she made mistakes and felt every eye upon her. But there were also quieter moments that mattered more. Sitting at a table, helping Amelia learn her letters, laughing when she insisted on writing cake before cat. Walking into a room of important men and seeing them rise, not just because she was a princess now, but because Henry had made it clear that his wife's opinions were to be heard. Standing with Lady Beatrice on a balcony, listening to her grumble about the stupidity of half the nobility, then add softly, "You are doing well, you know, lying awake sometimes and remembering the girl who had sat alone at a restaurant table with tears on her cheeks and a name on a cake, and wanting to reach back and tell her, 'Hold on, this is not the end of your story.'" One evening, some time later, Amelia climbed into Evelyn's lap in the sitting room. "Tell me again," she demanded, "about the night I found you." "You did not find me," Evelyn said. "We were both in the same place by accident." "It was not an accident," Amelia said firmly. "It was a plan." "Whose plan?" Henry asked, looking up from his papers. "Hers," Amelia said, pointing at Evelyn's heart. "And his," she pointed at Henry's. "And maybe someone else's. I am not sure." "That sounds very complicated," Evelyn said. Amelia shrugged. "It is simple to me," she said. "You were sad. I was sad. Papa was sad. Now we are not. That is all." Henry set his papers aside and came to sit beside them. "She has a gift for cutting through politics," he said. "She has a gift for telling the truth," Evelyn replied. He put an arm around them both. "When you were left on your birthday," he said softly, "you thought your life was over." "I did," she admitted. "I thought I would be a story people told at tea, nothing more." "Now you are a story," he said. "But it is a different one." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "If anyone tells it," she said, "I hope they remember the cake." "The first one?" he asked. "Or the second?" "Both," she said. "The untouched one, and the one you brought. One to show how low a heart can fall, the other to show how far it can rise again." He kissed her hair lightly. "Let them tell it as a reminder," he said, "that rejection is not the final word, that sometimes being left at a table alone only means there is room for someone better to sit down." Evelyn smiled, feeling Amelia's small hand curl around her own, feeling Henry's steady warmth beside her. "Then let it be told," she said quietly, "so that some other girl somewhere with tears in her eyes and a waiting cake might know that what feels like the worst night of her life could be the beginning of her happiest chapter." Amelia lifted her head. "What is a chapter?" she asked. "It is a part of a story," Evelyn said, "one that ends so another can begin." "Then this is my favorite chapter," Amelia declared. "The one where I say, 'Can you be my new mama?' And you say, 'Yes.'" "I do not remember saying yes," Evelyn teased. "I remember you deciding for me." Amelia grinned. "It worked," she said. Henry laughed. "It did," he agreed. "And it brought us here." They sat together in the fading light, a prince who had chosen his heart over his fear, a woman who had risen from humiliation to honor, and a little girl whose question had changed everything. Outside, the world still turned, full of its own worries and whispers. But inside that room there was a quiet that had nothing to do with silence, and everything to do with being finally where one was meant to be. And if anyone, years later, asked how such an unlikely story began, Amelia would always answer the same way with great satisfaction. "It began," she would say, "with a birthday cake, a girl who cried, and a question no one expected me to ask." Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.